Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Two Old Bloggers. We've got a packed show for you today. Like SpaceX's epic launch this morning, we'll be looking at how the Minnesota Vikings are set to rocket into the future with Joshua Dobbs. We'll assess his impact so far and consider all the implications for the QB situation next season. Why we go through this, I don't know, because we're Vikings fans. Plus, we'll be musing over the impact of Anthony Barr's return to the Vikings and the impressive form of TJ Hockenson and the potential for Ty Chandler to ignite the Vikings running game. Please. And of course, we'll be previewing the Vikings' upcoming clash with the Denver Broncos. So grab your helmet, snap the buckle on that chin strap, and get ready for another exciting journey into the world of Vikings land. Vikings First and SKOL presents This Week in Vikings Land with Darren and Dave, your two old bloggers. Hey everybody, it's Dave here and Darren over there. We're your two old bloggers, been commenting publicly on your Minnesota Vikings for over 2 decades apiece. That's why they call us old. But how is the wise one in Canada today? How you doing, Darren?
I'm doing well, Dave. Thanks for calling me wise. I don't hear that very often around here in the house anyway. Hey, everything's great. What a week. 5 wins in a row. Pumped for tomorrow's game, even though I got to wait longer. I actually hate late night Vikings primetime games because I like watching them at 11 a.m. here in Mountain Standard Time. The game, you get up and the game's ready to go almost. So this thing where I got to wait till 6:20 tomorrow is p.m.
Well, hey, it is what it is. The further east we go, the later we wait. And the longer for the night. But anyways, hey, I want to thank everybody that's joined us so far today. We got Sodak Kid, Mary. I saw Drewster in there. The doctor's in here. Sean's in here. Raymond, of course. Who else am I missing? Chuck is showed up. Outstanding. I even saw Justin Day.
There you go. Let's go.
Justin. Yep. And I want to thank everybody for being here today. We're going to have some fun, and we're going to talk some Minnesota Vikings. Hey,
congratulations on Michigan getting their 1,000th win today.
I didn't see that. I bet
900 of them were when they stole signs.
hey, their coach is suspended. It can't be him. So, hey, which is stupid.
No.
Anyways. But it happens. Now, as you see on the thumbnail on the left, we're celebrating that rocket launch this morning. It was fantastic. If you're a rocket geek like I am, it was fun to watch. I was up at 4:30 watching it live, and it was just spectacular. It was a success. Now, it didn't do everything they want to do with it, but it was a success. It got beyond the pad. All 32 or 33 engines stayed lit. It got through hot staging, went on further, and they got tons of data, and they will keep pressing on, and there won't be such a big gap between the third launch and this launch was with the first launch. And the pad looked all nice and cool afterwards, just little minor stuff that they got to fix up, but nothing like last time when they dug a huge crater under it. So it was a good thing for today, and it got me pumped up, and I can almost guarantee you that Josh Dobbs was watching this morning. Which brings us to theme 1. Josh Dobbs.
Josh Dobbs, yes. Popular topic in Vikings land, and since he joined us, but Dave, really, kind of the bringing it up because I know there's still 7 games left in the season, Viking season at least, but it's never too early to talk
Hopefully
quarterback
more,
plans
yeah.
next season. Now, am I right?
You're right.
Because it's been incredible what Josh Dobbs has done for the Vikings, and not quite 2 full games of work as our starting quarterback. Just the basic stats in those 2 games is completed over 67% of his passes, thrown for 426 yards, has 3 touchdown passes, has run for 2 more, and he's posted a QB rating of 101 roughly, and QBR rating of over 86 and a bit, respectively. And the Vikings have won both of those games, and so and Dobbs is doing this while he's getting paid a guaranteed, just over $800,000 this season. That is quite a bargain in today's NFL, David.
Huge.
And huge. And the deal also expires at the end of this season, so he'll be a free agent when the season ends. And he's picked a great time to play well, because he's going to he stands to get a substantial raise in 2024. And of course, Dobbs isn't the only Vikings quarterback who'll be a free agent next offseason. Who's the other one, Dave?
This guy, Mr. Kirk Cousins. Hey, did you know they have the exact same agent?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. So that agent's going to probably make bank from Minnesota one way or the other.
I wonder if he's going to push for Dobbs to get all guaranteed moolah.
I don't know. I have no idea, but it's going to make it even more interesting.
It is, yes. So the only quarterbacks that the Vikings have under contract next season will be Nick Mullens and rookie Jaren Hall. But I think that the play of Dobbs has really helped, I think, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell as far as providing kind of an additional option for how they're going to attack the quarterback situation in 2024. Because 3 weeks ago, when you didn't have Hobbs, I think the options were re-sign Cousins, and then you'd have Mullens and Hall battle it out for the backup spot, and they'd probably both stick around because Hall would be if you didn't win the backup, he'd be your number 3, or anyway. Or second option be you let Cousins walk. You draft one of the QB prospects from the class of 2024, which is very stacked right now, according to what I'm reading. And you do that either in the first or second round, and you work with that guy through OTAs and mini camp and training camp to have him ready to start in 2024. And then you've got Mullens and Hall around as insurance if the rookie struggles. The third option was you sign a free agent veteran bridge QB to start for you, and then maybe you draft the eventual replacement early in the 2024 draft, or if you don't like them, maybe you wait another year. And then you let Hall and Mullens battle it out for the other quarterback roster spots for the backup role. But so that was, I feel, those are the 3 options for us, realistic options for us heading into the 2024 season. But then you get Hobbs, and he's had eye-opening play the last 2 weeks. And I think that gives Kwesi and O'Connell another option. Whereas you got a veteran guy who's already with the team, and you can eyeball him for every day until the end of the season. And because he's played so well in that short stint, maybe he's not even a bridge guy, Dave. Maybe he is the guy.
I know.
Call me crazy. And what the Vikings, I think, were going to do at quarterback for 2024, especially when they won some games lately and they saw their chance of picking up that top, being in the top 5 in the draft, and then you have a shot at one of the top-rated college quarterbacks, basically Caleb Williams and Drake May. So that disappeared with a few wins. So I think it's been up in the air what we were going to do. Would the Vikings really take a shot at some of the second-tier college guys like Michael Penix Jr. or Bo Nix later in the first round or in the second round and give them a shot at being your number 1 guy in 2024 and move on from Cousins when you aren't going to get the shot at the top 2 guys? That seemed kind of a bit risky. It's always risky, but that seemed a little bit more risky than if you get May and Williams land in your lap because you've got a top 5, top 3 pick or whatever. But so I was starting to warm to the idea, and I know, Dave, you wouldn't like this, but I was starting to warm to the idea of bringing back Cousins on, maybe a 2-year deal, even if it was going to cost a lot. Because with the way Cousins was playing those last couple of games before he got hurt, it's the best I've seen him play as a Viking. And he'd have the best surrounding, if you brought him back, he'd have the best surrounding cast he's ever had.
Well, let's talk about, hold on.
Minnesota.
Let's talk about that cast. What does that cast have to play with or have to contribute to Kirk Cousins playing the best football of his life? What does it have to contribute to Jaren Hall on his second drive? First drive was nothing. Second drive, driving down and looking halfway decent. And then when Josh Dobbs comes in, suddenly Josh Dobbs looks like the second coming of a decent quarterback. And is it all just on those individual quarterbacks, or is it on the surroundings, the team that's built up around them and the coaching system? In this case, O'Connell and how he plans and does stuff for the offense that is causing these guys to play at a higher standard, or what a standard we appreciate more, a higher level of play than they had in the past.
I think it's a big factor, Dave. I think you look at that, the infrastructure that we built on the offense. I think finally, whether it's Cousins or anybody else, finally you've got an offensive line that can protect the quarterback. You've got Hockenson, you got Jefferson, you got Mattison. Who would want to have those guys to throw to? Right. And then I was going to get into it a little bit later, but then you got Kevin O'Connell, who's, you talked about it a few times, Dave, about part of the reason you think that he was brought here was to develop quarterbacks and to identify a quarterback who could be the quarterback of the future. Well, he has, I think we've talked about it before. I think that he is, with Cousins, I think he changed Cousins' mentality as a player and made him become, I don't know, I hate to use the word gunslinger, but take more chances, like trust his players more and try to fit the ball into tight windows, and maybe take a few gambles, much more than he had done previous to O'Connell being there. And then you see how Jaren Hall, very small sample size, but the Green Bay game, the couple of drives he was in there, and that last drive against Atlanta where O'Connell seemed to take a 5th-round rookie who really probably we didn't expect and didn't think was ready to play, and he looks like he's capable of being a starting quarterback in the NFL. And then Dobbs comes here, and you see what he's done in 2 games. Not that he played poorly in Arizona. I think that, when you watch those games, he played well with a lot of times with what he had.
And what he had was garbage. Yeah.
Yes. But particularly what we saw, like in the second half in Atlanta and in the first half against New Orleans, is like way beyond anything that I would expect Josh Dobbs to perform at. And so maybe, again, that's the Kevin O'Connell effect. I don't know, but go ahead.
What scares nighttime is Dobbs' accuracy. We're a little bit spoiled with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins, no matter which coach he's playing for, whether it was Zimmer or O'Connell, is a very accurate quarterback when it comes to throwing a football.
Yes.
There are not that many in the league that are more accurate than he has been. Now, the deal with Kirk is you're running up on the age deal on top of now the blown Achilles tendon. But
yeah,
it's going to be interesting how they figure this out at the end of the season. And I'm sure we're going to discuss it quite extensively.
We are, because if you look at Dobbs, and it's only 2 games, but you got Dobbs here, he's played really well. He's intelligent. We know that. We're not going to get into that. He's got a strong arm. It's not the strongest in the world, but it's plenty strong. He can make all the throws, at least what I've seen. He's got very good size. He's 6'3", 215 pounds, so he can see over big linemen. He'll only be 29 when the 2024 season starts. So he's got a lot of prime time, plenty of prime years left. And we've all seen what he can do with his legs.
Yeah, not a lot of tread off his tires, because he hasn't played a whole lot.
Nope. But we've seen what he can do with his legs, Dave, and how that adds a dimension to the Vikings offense we haven't seen in decades. Like I can count about 8 plays in the past 2 games running the ball that have been huge in getting the Vikings dubs. And Cousins couldn't have made any of those plays with his legs. He wouldn't even tried them. Now, you can make an argument that, well, Dobbs would have got rid of the ball to the right guy earlier on some of those plays, and you wouldn't have had to scramble like that. And that is true in some cases, but still.
Yeah, but some cases he's gone through all his reads, all 4 of them, and they were all 4 covered at the time. And that's when he decided, well, they're covered. I'm bailing.
I'm getting out here and making a play, and he has. And beyond that, even with Dobbs getting a substantial raise in the offseason, no matter where it's from, he's going to be cheaper to keep around than Cousins will be. And now Cousins' track record of being able to play in the NFL and play well is much more extensive than Dobbs. We know that, and you'd have no doubt, even with him turning 36 in August, I don't think you'd have much doubt of what kind of play you're going to get from him if you bring him back. Whereas Dobbs has got 12 starts on his resume. He'll only have 19 when the regular season ends if he stays healthy and starts them all. So, the Vikings, you got to question, is the front office, does the coaching staff really want to commit to a guy like that? Well, maybe they are, because like we talked about earlier, he's been a guy who's bounced around the league a lot. But just like Cousins, he's going to enjoy the best supporting cast he's ever had if you brought him back. And what the O'Connell effect with the weapons that he has, with the weapons, we might even, we got to figure out the running back situation. Maybe next year, we add weapons there. It's a small sample size, but really, I still want to see what Dobbs is going to do the rest of the season, of course. And, adofo-mensah and O'Connell will as well. But if he can play close to how he's been playing so far, he give the Vikings a very, very interesting and I think unexpected decision to make at quarterback in 2024. So maybe you keep Dobbs around as your starter, you keep developing Hall, and then you still got the option to draft a QB high in next April's draft, or if you don't like what you got when you at that point in the following draft. And it just feels like if Dobbs can keep on playing near the level he's been at now, I could be talked into going into that direction.
I know I could. And if with watching how dynamic the offense is with a running quarterback, one that can run. If we're going to draft our own, like Mary said, she wants us to draft our own franchise quarterback. That, to me, would have to move up to be absolutely one of the requirements for that quarterback coming out of college, that he's got to be able to move. And if he can't, he drops down further down on the board. I don't need a guy who can stand back there like a statue, because that limits offensive line can only hold for so long, right? A guy that can move can generate more time and take a playoff schedule to make, hit a wide receiver. So that would, after just this demonstration of this season, that would instantly go, if you can't run, you're now not on my list. I don't care. Yeah. We'll move, we'll move a different direction. Now we have 2 that can run. Jaren Hall, our 5th rounder, can, but he's a little bit smaller. Dobbs is more the perfect size, being the 6'3" guy out of the bunch. But hey,
and from what I've seen, he's also a little bit faster, maybe a little bit more elusive, and he's a bit stronger. Like, he can shake off, even though he looks like kind of a lanky, not thin guy, but like he's not jacked like Anthony Richardson is or anything like that, but 250 pounds, but like he can shake off tacklers. We've seen that a number of times in the past 2 games. Whereas, I think some of those scrambles, if Hall was to do them, he'd be taken down pronto.
Could be. Hey there, Drew. Good to see you, my friend.
You made it back. He was there at the beginning saying, let's go. And then,
he probably hopped in and hit that like button like everybody should have. Doesn't cost nothing, and it helps. And then he went back to watching his football game or other things, whatever it was. I was sending him some nice memes. He was enjoying it. So that brings us from Josh Dobbs to theme 2. Quick hitters.
Yes, sir. So much going on here. We couldn't figure to get at a few little things. Of course, interesting news this week. Vikings bring back. It's 2017 all over again, Dave.
I know.
Bring it.
And it's the only picture I had of him at the time. I could have gotten somebody else or a newer picture, but it's a hard time finding them. We'll have plenty of them after the game because it looks like he is active for this game. So,
yeah,
I know he's wearing 54.
54 was signed to the practice squad earlier in the week, but then we just found out today that he's been promoted to the active roster. So, I was, I don't know, I shouldn't really care about this, but I was like, oh, it's kind of nice that Anthony Barr is coming back when we signed him. And of course, with Jordan Hicks going out and on the injured reserve, and we don't know how long he's going to be out, but it's at least 4 weeks, but it could be longer. Like the Vikings had a need to add some depth to the on the ball linebacker unit, and so Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, Brian Flores decide to bring back Anthony Barr, who of course was a very important member of those Vikings defenses that Mike Zimmer ran from 2014 through to 2021. And part of me is like, yeah, it's nice that Barr came back. It's good to have him as a depth because, he was playing last year. He was a starter for Dallas on a very good defense. And at 31, he still might have a little bit of gas in the tank, especially because he hasn't played for months and months and months. So he's fresh as a daisy, right? He's got no nicks. His knee should be okay, relatively okay, all that sort of stuff. But I do, even with him bringing back, I still, my hope is that Troy Dye, Brian Asamoah, those guys, the younger guys, that they show that they can bring something to the table, and potentially one of them can be part of the future for the Vikings on the defensive side of the ball, and that we don't need Anthony Barr all that much. But and Dye went in there for when Hicks went out, Dye replaced him, or Ivan Pace is basically replacing Jordan Hicks right now, as far as like being the linebacker who's going to be on the field the most, or at least that's how it worked against the Saints. But Dye was playing, he was the other linebacker playing the less amount of snaps. Like what was Ivan Pace was being I don't know, forced to do, but how the playing time was going with Ivan Pace in several of the last few games, with Hicks never going off the field. But I think watch Barr make the Pro Bowl. Yeah, but when Barr was drafted by the Vikings, of course, he was at UCLA, he was a guy who rushed the passer a lot, kind of a stand-up guy, edge rusher at 3-4 defense, as far as I remember. And when he got to the Vikings, of course, they drafted him. We had a 4-3 defense, and he was one of the three linebackers. And it's not the linebacker's job to rush the passer. It's the 4 defensive linemen who do that most of the time. So I think Vikings fans kind of always felt, even I did, that Mike Zimmer didn't use Barr as a pass rusher as much as he could have or maybe should have. Barr was a kind of a do-it-all guy, in coverage a lot. He gets in on blitzes somewhat, but he was an all-around linebacker. That's not to say Zimmer did the wrong thing with Barr, because Barr, I think, was an excellent player for us for many years, and he did his job well. But the thing that he seemed to do the best at the college level, he didn't do as much at the NFL level. Well, now he's with.
He did have a couple of issues at trying to do that. He doesn't have that quick twitch of a typical edge rusher, nor did he have the power of an edge rusher that wins by using power. And anytime he'd go up against a tackle or somebody, he'd get swallowed up. Now, where Barr was excellent at and how he was utilized was in the A-gap blitzes, the mixing, the matching, the things that Flores does, where he's going to throw all those people on the line. You got to pick out which one's coming, which one's not, and who's to block and who's to not. And he's the one that squirts through and sacks your quarterback. And I really look forward to that since he's here, if he gets playing time, that he does that. And the other thing, Barr was absolutely fantastic at when he was younger. He could go sideline to sideline. His horizontal movement was outstanding. And there aren't that many linebackers that could do that. And his was very, very good at that. Now, do I think he still has that movement? Probably no. He's probably lost a step or two. But he's still got his smarts, and the way I look forward to seeing how this man utilizes him.
Me too, because and for if you're like in the past, you're saying, Zimmer doesn't use him on the blitz enough. Well, hey, now you're on a team that blitzes all the fucking time. And so again, like and Barr, so Barr might be finally getting into a system at age 31 that is the system he was born to be in his whole career. Although I find, I have no stats to back that up, but it seems like Flores is sending like the safeties, Mattison in particular, on blitzes more than say Pace and Hicks. But I don't know if that's a large amount. But still, Barr is in a defense. Barr is in a defense and a defensive scheme, and with a defensive coordinator who likes to send pressure, likes to blitz, and likes to do it a lot. And so Barr is going to, if he gets to play, and I got a feeling that that he may play a lot more than we expect, because I don't, if you're looking at Asamoah, what has he proven in 2 years? Nothing. Troy Dye is in his 4th year. He's never been able to be establish as himself as a player who can play any defensive snaps on a regular basis. He's a special teamer. How has that changed in year 4? I don't know. And then Nick Vigil is a journeyman veteran guy who, maybe you put him in there, but Barr is probably better than him even at age 31. So I think that, if Barr gets a large number of snaps and even starts it tomorrow, he doesn't know the defense really, but if you're just sending him on blitzes, he might carve a substantial role on this defense that's been playing really, really well. And he might have a role that we just did not expect. And he'll be doing it, going downhill, like they say, like a lot of blitzing, a lot of going forward. Like I said, I'm interested to see how much playing time he gets and what Flores does with him when he's in the game with that playing time.
They've already said Ivan Pace will have the green dot, so
green dot.
Don't have to worry about that.
Nope. He just has to know what he's doing.
And make the tackle.
And the maestro will have him ready. The maestro is Brian Flores.
Yes. This defense has been such a relief this year.
Yes.
That brings us to the next quick hitter. This man, TJ Hockenson.
Yeah, well, in the before the season started, we had a segment. We talked about how could TJ Hockenson have the best receiving year of any Viking in history, and I was promoting that he would, based on the amount of times his usage in the previous year, when with Kirk Cousins coming back and all the offense coming back and all that sort of stuff. So, well, we're 10 games in, and Hockenson is ready to blow Kyle Rudolph's 83 catches, which is the most the Vikings tight end has ever had in a single season, and Joe Sensor's 1,004 receiving yards, which is the most a Vikings tight end has ever had in one season. He's about to blow those out of the water. He right now, 10 games in, 71 catches, 681 yards. So he's on pace for 127 catches, something like that. And about 1,150 yards roughly through a full season, with the pace that the averages that he's been going on now. And so, really, and he's been such a huge part of this offense, particularly in the last few weeks, Dave. We talked last week about how Josh Dobbs in Arizona targeted tight ends like over 30% of the time. And since he's been with the Vikings, he's targeted TJ Hockenson well over 30% of the time. Like last week,
why stop? That first half he had was just remarkable.
Yeah, it was. And again, I think the only thing that can stop TJ right now is his ribs, because teams you saw last week, they're going after him in the midsection, and it is brutal. And every time he moves, it's got to be like agony. And then you get hit there as well. You're right, Drew, going to be a crucial player in the playoff run. And he has been, but he has been like exactly what early in the season. Yeah, Droppinson, all those jokes, and he has dropped a few, but certainly has picked it up the past 6-7 games. And he's been Josh Dobbs' best friend the past 2 games. And he's going to continue to be, I think, just because Dobbs throws the tight ends a lot, even when JJ gets back, which won't be tomorrow, unfortunately. But yeah, and with the way that GJ Hockenson has played so far, I just kind of wonder, if anybody's complaining now about the extension that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah signed him to before the season goes, because everybody's like, overpaid bum, blah 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 blah.
It's all Kwesi's fault. Blame him.
Yeah.
That's why he's
brutal GM, brutal signing. Why pay so much for that? Well, it's looking like a pretty good deal right now.
And for sure, he is, without a doubt. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is, whether it's Cousins, Hall, Dobbs, whoever, they love throwing to TJ.
Most most catches for a tight end this year, Dave. Better than Kelsey.
Yep.
Hey, I like him.
Well, that brings us to our next quick hitter. Running back.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it was a changing. Yeah, it wasn't a changing of the guard last game, but wanted to talk about Ty Chandler. It was his first opportunity because Alexander Mattison, like with Cam Akers going down, we've complained about the running game all season. It was like, okay, Mattison isn't getting it done. So the hope, what are we going to do? Well, the Vikings traded for Cam Akers. So our hope was that Akers would slowly take over a role and be the number one guy and take that role from Alexander Mattison. Well, it didn't quite happen. Akers looked good at times, but he wasn't able to really wrestle the number one role from Alexander Mattison, which was unfortunate. Then Akers tears his Achilles, so he's out of the mix. So forces Ty Chandler to get there and be the number 2 guy behind Alexander Mattison. So finally, last game against the Saints, he gets a chance to maybe eat into that role. And he ended up getting, 15 carries that, because of Mattison getting a concussion late in the game and being ruled out, he took over the load as the number 1 guy. Not huge, impressive stats, 15 carries, 44 yards. So that's not a great run yardage per carry average, but you got to remember that particularly the last 6 or 7 carries he had, the Vikings were trying to milk the clock. Everybody knew they were going to run. So there was a lot of negative yardage and not successful runs for Chandler facing stacked boxes. But I think, some of the runs that you did see from him in that game, particularly like that first run he had, like he just like shot out of a cannon through that hole, and he almost broke that thing and took it to the house. And there wasn't, and so, for like, he got 10 yards there, 10, 11 yards there. There was one play, it wasn't a big play. It was in the second half, I think. The Vikings had 3rd and 4 or something like that. They give the ball to Chandler. It looked like he was going to go inside, but he saw nothing was there. So he bounced it outside. He beat the defenders to the edge, got around the edge, and got the 4 yards for a first down. That is a play that Alexander Mattison cannot do. He cannot bounce it to the outside and beat guys to the edge most of the time. And then on that, another play where we kind of saw the explosion, the speed, that added dimension that Ty Chandler can bring, was the touchdown, the second touchdown that got called back because Brian O'Neill allegedly held. Like, there was a pretty big hole there initially, and really O'Neill didn't need to do what he did. Chandler would have got the first down at least if he didn't do anything. But like, Chandler just beat the whatever angles the defenders had on him, he just blew right by them. Like, he was gone again. Alexander Mattison could not pull off that run. So Mattison's questionable tomorrow. Maybe he's going to play, maybe not, but he hasn't been ruled out yet, as far as I know. But I hate to see people.
He's in 100%.
Oh, okay. Well,
he's not
I thought they might hold it up.
He's past protocol. He's playing.
Well, it's good for Alexander Mattison. I'm glad that he's passed it in protocol, but I would have been happy if the Vikings were a little cautious and didn't play him. And then you got a chance for Chandler to be the number one running back and get maybe 20 carries a game to see what he could do with it, because the running game still needs it. It's really struggled all year. There's only been a couple of games where we really,
and I wonder. I agree with you. It's struggled, and I wonder if there's a problem that's systemic across the whole running back room. Because looking at the all-22, there was a couple times when Chandler missed obvious cuts into open holes, and he bounced it out. One of them, he was running left, and Darren set the block on the left, and what's his name? Our left guard set it on the inside. Reisner, and there was a hole there. But instead of planting with his left foot and cutting in, he bounced it out and got minimal gain from that. Whereas if he'd gone through the hole, had seen the hole, he might have gotten 10 yards, right? Now, the problem with the entire running back room lately is that they seem to not see the hole. Well, if that's the case, and it's across everybody, which makes it hard to believe that everybody's got that problem, I wonder if it's a coaching point that's causing it versus a talent point that's doing it. You know, I can understand Alexander Mattison not seeing the hole. Alexander Mattison has pretty much been the same his whole career. But when everybody's doing it, it bothers me. And it just makes me go, I don't know if it's true. I don't know what it is, but you'd like to see them hit those holes and then use what I like about Chandler's is explosiveness, right?
Oh, yeah.
He can plant his foot and go, and that's what we want to see.
Drew's saying, how about the 100 times Mattison's missed the running lane? But
see, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Drewster. His vision, we used to call Steve Grogan way back in the day, quarterback for the Patriots, tunnel vision Grogan. And because he would lock in on his receiver and he just, well, Mattison is much the same way. He's like, I'm supposed to go to the 3-hole, and that's where he goes. It could be wide, linemen can bust people open wide over here or wide over here. He's running into that pack where the 3-hole was supposed to be. And to me, part of that's coaching. So I don't know, Drew. I don't know. But to see all three of them do it, you can throw in Wongwu if you wanted to. Fat Hockenson, hey there, welcome to the show.
You and Tyler on Tyler's show earlier in the week, you touched on the Chandler, and Tyler knows his football, so I'm not going to really dispute. But he was talking about how I think if I got it right, how Chandler, if he knows the hole, you give him the one hole, like that's where he's got to run. That and it's open. That's where his strength is. But if you ask him to use the vision and find, sift out a hole, that's not his strength as a running back. And that's kind of, partly what the Vikings running game is. Mm-hmm. So, but I still, despite those limitations, I think that, I think, more Chandler, right? Like, let's see if he can
see him explode, and if it's because he can't pass block, I didn't see anything where he missed it. And with a mobile quarterback, it's not as big a deal. With Kirk Cousins standing in one spot, yes. The running back needs to get that free guy that's coming in and make the correct choice every single time and hit him and stop him every single time. But with Dobbs being able to move, well, maybe not so much. So,
and I've been bagging on Alexander Mattison here, but I do want to acknowledge at least twice I saw in the Saints game where Mattison like wiped out a pass rusher. Like there's one time the guy tried to jump over him almost, and Mattison just hammered him. So there was a couple of great pass protections by him. So want to acknowledge those from Matty.
Yeah, and we'll get into that because we got the next theme 3, our game preview, starting now. All right, we're talking about the Vikings versus the Broncos. And I found this pick, and I thought it was too good. Jaren Allen chasing a quarterback. And hopefully we'll have Danielle Hunter and the rest of the defensive line and whoever's rushing, chasing Wilson tomorrow. But we'll find out. We're going to start out with the normal slides. Starting out with injury report, we have Caleb Evans already ruled out. Jaren Hall already ruled out because of his concussion. He's not through the protocol yet. I've already read where Nick Mullens will be your backup quarterback no matter what, so he's in. It doesn't matter that he was questionable or not. He is in. And Justin Jefferson,
one injury away from Manwich coming in. Yeah. That doesn't happen.
Yeah, and it could be that Kevin O'Connell's like, you're good to go.
Yeah,
I don't care if you can't walk. You're good to go. We're not bringing in Mannion. And then JJ was ruled out today. They're going to keep him out at least one more week, being this week. We'll find out what they do when it comes up to the Bears
SKOL Mafia
next Monday. Yep, and Mafia's in the house. Love it. Good to see him, along with everybody else that's joined us today, and the one person I think I pissed off and gave us a thumbs down and left. Anyways, then we have rankings. And you know me, I always start with the quarterbacks because generally you can go quarterback versus quarterback. Who's the better quarterback wins 80% of the time or better, 80 to 95% of the time. Whoever has a better quarterback generally wins the game. Well, let's take a look at those quarterbacks.
Pretty close there, David.
Yes, and you got to remember Josh Dobbs' score also includes his time with the garbage down in Arizona. So his is going to be pulled down a little bit lower than what it, in actuality, it is here in Minnesota because it's been great so far in Minnesota. So as we sit right here, PFF has Dobbs ranked 19th and moving up. There's going to be a whole lot of up arrows in these slides this week. And Russell Wilson at 17. That's only 2 spots. And like I said, PFF includes his time with Arizona. And we know he's been playing a whole lot better in Minnesota than he ever did in Arizona. So that's interesting. Now, more detailed, we've got we've got Dobbs as a 66.3 grade overall. That includes Arizona. All these do. And whereas Russell Wilson is 77.1. Not bad for Russell. Russell's having a decent season. You can see that Russell Wilson dominates every single category on this slide, except for QBR, which is interesting.
Yeah.
But you can go through there and see he's better in just about everyone. Power ranking, they're real close, but in every other one, he's the better quarterback. But again, it all includes Arizona. So take it with a grain of salt. Then we get to the offense versus the defense. Pardon me. Offense, Vikings up to 23 overall. They were below that last week. We were saying, why in the world does PFF have them so low? Especially, I sent you Sumer Sports ranking of them, and it's, offense is 9 amongst the league, somewhere in there. But they have the Broncos defense is 22nd. Now, here's where we're going to start seeing numbers disagree way over what PFF has. DVOA from Fantasy Football Network has our offense now up to 12th overall, 12th in the pass, 26th in the run. They have the Broncos defense 32nd, 32nd, and 32nd. I warn you, just because they rank 32nd, they are playing a lot better than that right now.
Way better.
That's because
way
the
better.
start of their season was garbage. They are playing a lot better than that. Now, Elias has us as yards. This is the only stat we dropped in all week. Yards were now down to 10th overall. Passing were 3rd, rushing were 29th, points were 12th. Points are what matters in all reality, and we're 12th. We're 27th in the giveaway department with 17. We are now at -3. Remember, after the first few games, we were minus double digits.
No turnovers last week, David.
Yep, they've improved.
First time all season. For the offense.
For the Donkeys on the defensive side, they've got yards. They're 32nd, passing 23rd, rushing 32nd, points 32nd, meaning they're the most scored on out of anybody. And for sacks, they rank 29th. They only have 17th as a team so far this season. And takeaways, they rank 6th with 16 total. They tend to get theirs on the back end because they have an excellent defensive backfield. The Donkeys are favored by 2.5 points as of last night, and the over-under is 42.5 for all the like to wager on that. When we flip the script, we have the Vikings defense 11th by PFF. DVOA has them 8th, 9th in the pass, 12th against the run. Elias has them 13th in yards, 16th in passing, 10th in rushing, 14th in points, 11th in sacks with 27, and 15th with takeaways of 14, and that helps. Now, their offense on the Broncos side is ranked 15th, middle of the pack. DVOA has them at 17th, 14th in the pass, 18th in the run. Then it comes to Elias. They're 23rd in yards, 28th in passing, 12th in rushing, 15th, middle of the pack in scoring points. They have 21 sacks or taken 21 sacks. They've given the ball away. They're ranked 15th, middle of the pack, 12 times, and they have a +4 differential. So when you look at that, when you look at these base stats, I agree with Drew. Why are the Broncos favored? Is it just home field? I don't know. Well, we're going to get to that. Here's a big chunk of it.
The past couple of weeks, Dave, is just Vegas hasn't gotten around to the Dobbs effect yet. They're looking at Cousins is out. They got to back up. They're the underdog. That's I think
it very well could be. But here is the main reason why I think they may have the Vikings ahead.
Special teams.
Special teams. The Vikings dropped to 31st overall. And that's because of our kicker and his inconsistency. And I think you even wrote in the notes he's in his midseason funk or whatever.
Well, he always has a funk every year. It's just when it happens, we never know. But he's in it now.
He's in it now. But all the green dots, I know it's hard to see because they're all on one side and it's hard to see, but they're go towards the Broncos. They dominate in every single category. When you break down those scores, I know they may be small and hard to see. 0 is average in the league. 0 is going to be 16th, right? And so if you're minus whatever, you're minus approximately that many spots below average. If you're on the positive side, you're above. Well, when it gets to kick returns and punt returns, they have a secret weapon over there on the Broncos that's absolutely dominating. And we'll get more into him here in just a bit. I added down below, you see number 11, that's Najee Thompson for your Minnesota Vikings. Started out the season with wearing, I think, number 36. He has switched it to number 11. He is going to have to be our weapon against theirs, and we shall see how it goes. And since it's an outdoor game, we have weather. I looked this up last night. Don't know if it's changed today, but it's been pretty steady most of the week. We should start out and pregame warm-ups around 50 degrees-ish. And then we're going to probably get some light rain if we get any rain at all. It's around 30 to 40% chance in Colorado, which isn't too bad. That's usually a hit or miss type deal. And the winds are relatively negligible, only 7 miles an hour, which is nothing for Denver. You can easily have 50-mile-an-hour winds in Denver and then screw everything up. So the worst
your old stomping grounds, Dave. Denver.
The worst it's going to get is it's going to get cold and wet if it rains. You know that if you get soaking wet, that chills you real quickly. And then we worry about tracking the ball or holding on to the ball. But we'll see how it goes. They do play on grass. It's a nice surface for mostly. So we'll see how it goes. That's the weather. And that brings us to the first point of this. You wanted to talk about how the Broncos were a punchline.
Well, yeah, like right now with the Vikings and the Broncos, Dave, you got two teams that are going in the same direction, and that is up. Because remember a month ago when Denver was the league punchline, they're going to trade everybody, maybe even Patrick Surtain, who's going, the fire sale, tanking, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's not the case anymore. They've won 3 in a row, including beating Kansas City at home and Buffalo on the road. And they are much, much friskier and a much tougher opponent now than they look like they would have been like for the Vikings like 5 weeks ago. And watching the Donkeys play Monday night against Buffalo or against the Bills and Kansas City, it's hard to, it's a bit hard to tell whether are they a team that's really hitting its stride under that smug asshole Sean Payton, or did they just benefit from the past 2 weeks playing two teams that played some sloppy, turnover-filled football? I think there's a bit of that, but certainly I don't think there should be any doubt that Denver is playing much better than it did earlier in the season. That wouldn't be very hard, but they're playing substantially better. Their defense in particular, they got a 3-4 base, so that's something the Vikings practice against every week. Not a lot of big names on there other than Surtain, but I think that the Vikings will have to keep their eye on a couple of the edge guys, Baron Browning and Nick Bonito, get them blocked. They can be a problem. The big weakness, as you saw on some of your slides, Dave, for the Broncos defense has been the rush defense. They're dead last in yardage given up, and ESPN claims that they are also dead last in their run stop win rate metric. If you watched the Bills-Broncos game Monday night, and a lot of you probably did, you saw James Cook and Latavius Murray, 40-year-old Latavius Murray, just gashing the Broncos on the ground repeatedly. So that looks like something most offenses want to take advantage of. The rub here, of course, is that for the Vikings offense is that the run game has not been able to take advantage of that.
It's the weakest part of the offense, yes.
Yeah, especially with Alexander Mattison playing, and he's probably going to remain the starting running back. And so, like, the Vikings ran for 125 yards last week, which is pretty good against the Saints defense. That's supposed to be pretty good. And they had a season
we played good rush defenses.
Yeah, and the season high 146 against Atlanta. But much of that was boosted by Josh Dobbs and his scrambling. Like, he had 66 rushing yards against Atlanta, 44 against the Saints. When the Vikings running backs ran the ball in those games, there were a lot of failed runs. And Kevin O'Connell talked about how the Saints in the second half used a spy on Dobbs in the second half of the game. And I think we saw that Dobbs wasn't nearly as successful or able to run the ball as much in the second half as he was in the first half. So I wonder if Denver's going to use a defensive coordinator, Vance Johnson's going to use like a similar approach. They did make a concerted effort again in the Bills game to prevent Josh Allen from scrambling, particularly going to his right, and it worked because Allen only had 4 carries for 13 yards, which is not very much for him. And because Dobbs scrambling has been such a huge reason he and the Vikings offense have been successful in the 2 games he's played. Like, who would have thought that the Vikings, 2 of their best point production of the season, 2 of their top 3 would be with Dobbs as your quarterback. But if the Broncos take that scrambling away from Dobbs, I think that's a big win for them, because I don't think that the Vikings will get enough from Mattison or Chandler on the ground to lean on the run game the way they might like to move the ball.
I hope they do, though. I hope this is the game that the run game gets right.
Hey, yeah, could be an outlier, right? But having said that, I think the reason for hope for the Vikings offense, even with Justin Jefferson out of the game, is that Dobbs has been much, much more effective as a pocket passer than I expected. And if the Broncos devote one player to spy him, like the Saints did in the second half, well, that's an potential advantage for the offense, because you got one less player that you'll have to account for in coverage because they're spying on the quarterback.
Well, and this is an approach I hope they take in the future. And the reason being is because if you dedicate a spy to Dobbs and Jefferson's back in the lineup, now he's not going to be tomorrow, but if he's back in the lineup, who's going to be left free? Who are you going to leave uncovered? Because, Jefferson demands a double team.
Mm-hmm.
Jordan Addison is, going to have his guy. TJ is going to have his guy. Well, if you suddenly dedicate somebody to a spy, that means it either means Jefferson isn't being doubled or somebody's running wide open.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to see that. That should be fun.
It would be. So I think Kevin O'Connell, who's gotten, I think he's done a tremendous job, especially the last couple of weeks. But it's going to be. Let's see how he continues to shift the offensive play calls to play to Dobbs' strengths and take away the effectiveness of the defense. Last week the first half last week with Dobbs was tremendous, like the best offensive football we've seen probably all season from the Vikings offense. But in the second half, not so good. And O'Connell, I don't know if he was falling on a sword, but he took a lot of the blame for that. He said, I went conservative. I didn't put the guys in position to succeed. I think the Vikings called more run plays in the second half than pass plays, which is kind of bonkers when they passed the ball so well in that game. So he acknowledged he didn't put the foot on the gas in the second half, played maybe more not to lose as opposed to playing to win. And that's something he's got to learn. And so I'll see if he, how he adjusts to that in this game against, a Broncos defense that's been doing pretty well. So that's the offensive defensive side of the ball on things. I think, defensively for the Vikings in this game, they've been playing really well under the maestro, Brian Flores. I think their DVOA is ranked 6th in the league from week 6 to 10. So that's really awesome. But Russell Wilson is playing, he's brutal last year, but he's playing really well this season. He's completed 68% of his passes almost. That'd be his second best completion. Yeah. That's his second best. Go ahead.
I had, if you listen to the podcasts, we did Scoling with Friends, and I did with the Mile High Report. And they were talking how he has made the transition from moving and relying on his long ball, looking for open stuff, to what Peyton wants is that short dink and duck, take what's available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And he's no longer throwing. He can still throw the long ball, but he's no longer throwing it as his primary weapon. He's sitting there, no, I'll take 5, 6, 7 yards. And it's revised his career, or revived it. So.
And if you saw that in the Bills game, but if you look at his numbers this year, again, he's completing almost 68% of his passes, which would be his second best completion percentage of his career. And he's had a long career. 18 touchdown passes so far, only 4 interceptions. And he's still great at escaping pressure in the pocket and frustrating your pressure schemes The Bills tried to pressure him a ton. They did a great job of it, but he escaped lots. But this hasn't been a big, like you're talking about, Dave, this hasn't been a big play offense. Wilson and Sean Payton are running. In 6 of the 9 games this year that Wilson has played, he's thrown for under, in 6 of those 9 games, he's thrown, sorry, I'm getting tongue-tied here, but in 6 of the 9 games this year, he's thrown for under 200 yards. Like, wow. That is not something, that is not something you've seen in the NFL, in modern day NFL very much. But you've got, what I've seen from the Denver offenses is that they're going to be patient. Wilson will take what you give him passing. Like you said, the dink and dunk. He's going to take a profit every time. He's not going to try to force the ball into tough coverage, or if he doesn't like something, he's going to be content to nickel and dime defenses down the field if that's what they're going to give him. And they like to stick to the running game and give the ball to Javonte Williams for the most part. Like, Williams isn't a flashy guy. He's only averaging like 3.9 yards per carry, but he's a physical guy. Doesn't go down easily. And then they'll sprinkle the rookie Jaleel McLaughlin in there at times and hope that he's super fast, super springy, elusive, and they're hoping he'll hit on an explosive play or two per game. But they really do stick with the running game. Now, the Vikings defense, I think, is much improved under Flores, but they also have struggled in some games to stop the run against Philly, against the Bears, at times against Atlanta. So they've got to control the Broncos' run game in this contest. I mean, it's always important, Dave, that you don't let Wilson or any quarterback get into a lot of easy to convert down and distance situations. But I think that's really important here in this game, just because of the way that the Denver offense operates and that they're, again, they've been so used to being short passing game, dink and dunk, move the ball methodically. And I think that's where losing Jordan Hicks really hurts, because he's been such a great player for us this year and one of our best tacklers. So to not have Hicks there to clean up and be in on a lot of tackles, that's a big loss when you play a Denver team that likes to lean on the running game as much as they do.
And the host from Mile High Report, Mike DeSico, said they do like to run, and where they like to run is straight up the middle, over the center and over the guards. He says they're excellent there. He says we can't run outside, to the tackles worth a damn. And he says their tackles aren't worth a crap when it comes to run blocking, but that middle portion of the field is where they like to run, and they make their money because they always get push. And that means Phillips is going to have a heck of a game if he's going to stop that and the rest of the defensive line rotation.
It will be important. Good news is that I think Phillips has been very good this year at doing that sort of thing. And Jonathan Bullard, too, I think, who's been an unsung hero on this defense, just plugging away. Got his first sack of the year last week. But I really like how Bullard's played on the run. He's been a nice stout guy for us and helped us a lot. But yeah, I think that's the running game. Like the top Broncos receiving threat is Cortland Sutton, 6'4". He's a big guy, target that he'll challenge our corners who are on the shorter side, especially with a Caleb Evans not playing, who's listed at 6'2". So, I can picture Wilson going to Sutton, particularly in the red zone, and having him try to box out guys like Mekhi Blackman or Byron Murphy or Andrew Booth, who are all 6 feet or shorter, and kind of use his size and advantage to make big plays. I think that's something to watch out for. But, Brian Flores' defense playing really well, been consistently good for several weeks now. So I think we can expect them to play well Sunday night against Denver, against what's been a pretty average offense. I think one thing that the unit will have to really be mindful of is that when they go after Wilson with pressure, is not get too wide in the rush lanes, because against Buffalo, the Bills got a lot of pressure on them. But when they left their rushing lanes in that kind of center to left guard, right guard areas, that's how Wilson escaped the pressure and took off. And he'll do the same thing against the Vikings and hurt us if we're not disciplined in our pass rush plan. I think that's going to be key defensively.
I think we can be. And they don't deal with, according to Mike, they don't deal with blitz well, or Russell doesn't. So
the Bills got a lot of pressure on Wilson in that game, but he did what Russell Wilson in his prime does, was he did a great job escaping it a lot of times too, and making plays or getting out of what could have been horrendous plays. So offensively and defensively, that's some things to look at. I think I want to touch on like 3 other things. 2 of them are special teams related that I think might have a huge impact in this game. And one of them is not special teams related, but just look, first off, the specialist field goal kickers. Right now, Greg Joseph, like I said, going through his usual funk, not very reliable for this right now. And for the season, he's only hitting 50% of his field goals that are 40 yards or longer. That is not good. So if this game comes down to a field goal, Dave, and this is the close game that I expect it to be, Broncos kicker Will Lutz, I think, is a much safer bet to make a key field goal that's 40 yards or over compared to Joseph. And it's not a distance thing. You got the elevation in altitude in Denver anyway, so the ball tends to travel a bit more. But Joseph's got the leg, but again, he just keeps on missing right all the time.
And it's always right, which makes you wonder if he's, lifting his head up or not keeping it down or whatever the little flaw is that's causing it to the right. Well, the Broncos feel the same way about Lutz as we do about Joseph, just to let you know. He's been inconsistent this year as well. He's not as great as they'd like him to be, and they get frustrated, and they hold their breath when he comes out to kick. So I do think he's a little bit better than Joseph, but 2 fan bases dealing with much the same thoughts.
He's only missed 2 field goals this year, a couple extra points as well. But
people in Denver want perfection.
Yeah, well, so do we. So place kickers, I think that's a concern for me going into a game that I think is going to be close. I think another special teams player to watch, you got into it, is Marvin Mims, rookie wide receiver. He's been a big threat returning kickoffs and punts for the Broncos this year. He's already returned 1 kickoff for 99 yards for a TD. Maybe that won't be as big of an issue because I expect Greg Joseph's going to boom the ball for touchbacks the whole time. But he's also got a 46-yard punt return on his stat sheet as the longest as well. Very fast, can make guys miss. And Dave, you threw out a stat which I was really surprised about his on punt returns. Maybe you can throw that out there.
Well, I've got the yards per average right up there for his kick returns and his punt returns. His punt return yard per average right now is 20.7 per punt return.
Yeah, that's outstanding.
Yes, outstanding is an understatement. Like I've always said, you want your punt returner to get 9. That should be your minimum. That's a little bit above average. You want 9. He's at over 20 on average per punt return. Where he's at, that 20.7 is 5th all time in the NFL. All time. Every team over 100 years, that's 5th best. He needs to be stopped. He does it on kick returns and he does it on punt returns. Stopping him on kick returns is easy. Blast the kick through the end zone. Don't give him a chance to return it. Just bang it through. Right? And Joseph, luckily, he's been good at that. So I'm not worried about that. It's the punt returns. And when it comes to the punt returning, this man will have to stop him and his gang, whether it be Troy Dye or whoever else is gunning down there with him. Najee Thompson hit that punt returner numerous times right as he's catching the ball. If he didn't call for fair catch, Najee's right there. He's got to make sure that he wraps up and holds on because Mims is an escape artist. People will grab him and he'll wiggle out and he's gone. And you cannot do that. Can you imagine getting a punt on almost every punt and averaging over 20 yards in return? What an advantage that is. Kick a 50-yard punt. Right? You return at 20, and you only lost 30 yards worth of field position. If they punted it at their 20, you now have it at the 50.
Yep.
It's a big advantage for the Broncos.
And like you said, so a couple of things there. Ryan Wright thinks got to be very important for him to be really outstanding tomorrow on directional punting. Punting to the left or the right side, so pinning Mims in, so he's basically eliminates one side of the field for Mims to escape through. The other thing is, of course, like you said earlier, well, don't punt. Keep on, scoring drives, and you don't have to punt. It's not a worry. So that's a thing, I think. And the other thing is just not Najee Thompson, but it's usually Thompson, Josh Metellus, Jay Ward, or Troy Dye are usually the four guys who are on the gun, the guys that get to the returners first. So they've got to be outstanding tomorrow in coverage, because they're going to be the first guys that are going to get the first opportunity to get a shot at Marvin Mims. And if they miss, I'm not liking Andrew DePaula's chances or Ryan Wright's chances of bringing down Marvin Mims if he gets 20, 30 yards, downfield and is already evaded Jay Ward, Najee Thompson, and those guys. So Mims could have even though he doesn't play a lot of snaps on offense, and kind of explosive there too, only 11 catches, but over 200 yards this year in receiving yards. But that's not where he's probably going to have the biggest impact. It's returning kicks if he gets to return any of them, and returning punts if he gets to return any of them. Like I said, the field position swings he can provide when you're getting a 20 yards every time you touch the ball on a punt return.
That's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. So those are two special teams worries for me. On the other side, I think one thing, haven't talked about it yet, but an advantage for the Vikings, something to watch out for in a close game, is penalties. And this is going to be the last thing I want to bring up, but in a close game with both teams are playing, I just want to point out that the Vikings are 29th in the league right now in penalties. Only Philly and Jacksonville have taken fewer penalties. So 29th in the league in that category is outstanding. That is good. And the Vikings are one of the few at least penalized teams in the NFL last year as well. So this seems to be something that isn't a fluke. It's something that O'Connell and his staff emphasize and coach up. On the other side, Denver is 10th in the league in penalties committed, which isn't good for them. So might not grab a lot of people's attention, but in a close game, the team that doesn't kill itself by committing penalty after penalty, like that team from Wisconsin did 3 weeks ago when they played the Vikings in Lambeau, that's an advantage for you in a close games. And I think the Vikings have the advantage there over the Broncos. So again, like if you don't have those killer holding penalties or pass interference penalties on you that either extend the other offensive drives or kill your offensive drive, that's a huge help. And you don't really remember seeing that happen a lot this year with the Vikings on either side. Like it's the other teams that are making the boneheaded penalty committing penalties, not the Vikings. And I think that could be an important thing in this game if we keep on doing what we've been doing all year, which is not taking a lot of penalties.
Hopefully it keeps up that way. All right. That brings us to the end of the show. But before we leave, who do you think's going to come out victorious on Sunday night?
Oh, damn. I was hoping you wouldn't ask me this question, because it seems like I pick against the Vikings every time. And they've been winning.
I've already made my pick. I did it on the crossover show.
So I'm like, if I pick them to win, they're going to lose. If I pick them to lose, they're going to lose. Vikings are going to lose. Vikings are going to lose.
All right.
There we go.
And I don't believe that. I think they're going to go in there and we're going to win their sixth in a row. Dobbs legend will grow, and we'll all be happy late tomorrow night. And as being happy, remember, live at the 2-minute warning, Vikings First and SKOL hops on the air. We get to watch that last 2 minutes together and then react. Hopefully it's a celebration. Hopefully we're not grousing at the end. Hopefully I'm yelling, Vikings win, Vikings win. And, we're having a great night. We have games that we get to watch tomorrow, which is cool because we don't play till tomorrow night. So we got all day to watch. There's a NFC North matchup between the Bears and the Detroit. There's the Cheesers play the Chargers. Chargers demolish them. So it's going to be a good day. I've even scheduled to go to the Apple store. I'm going to leave the house because I don't have to. I can catch the games on my phone while I'm shopping for what I'm looking for is an Apple Watch. See if I want to watch or not. I haven't worn one since 2010, but is it time to get one? That's the question. And so we'll find out. Maybe it'll help me with the broadcast. Maybe I won't point at stuff and be distracting. Who knows? I doubt it, but we'll find out. Any last words, everybody?
I'm seeing that a lot of people are feeling pretty bullish about the Vikings here in the comments. So I hope that they are right. Like my head tells me that the Vikings should win this one, and my superstition is
your superstition say no. But anyways,
keep on going the way you're going, Darren. Keep on picking against them. I'll keep on doing that as long as this winning streak continues.
That works. Yeah. And we'll know what you're doing, and that's cool. Well, I want to thank everybody that's joined us today. Yes. We appreciate it. I love the rocket there, Raymond. And yes, today's launch this morning was fantastic. And as we all know, we have the Pastronaut as our quarterback. And he, I'm sure, watched it because any Rocket Geek did today. And it was absolutely fantastic. So we can carry that momentum, the same one that SpaceX had. Hopefully we don't end the same with a rapid unscheduled disassembly, but hopefully we'll go, full bore tomorrow, make it all the way, and win. What do we say, Darren?
We say, SKOL Vikings, beat the donkeys.
SKOL Vikings. Like, subscribe, and ring the bell, and rate us on your favorite podcast aggregator. Darren and Dave, thank you for watching this episode of Two Old Bloggers. We look forward to seeing you on every show on the new Vikings First and SKOL. You can find our podcasts as part of the Fans First Sports Network. Sports takes for the fan, from the fan. SKOL, everybody!